this month I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. So August was a pretty good reading month for me. I was really surprised because, and I say this every single month, I feel like I keep just like reading between 4 and 5 books, and I never really feel super satisfied with my number at the end of the month. And this month, finally, I feel like I accomplished exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm really proud for reading 7 books this month. I just really enjoyed my reading month. Not every book was perfect, but I found so many of my new favorites. And overall, I feel like I just really enjoyed this reading month. So the first thing that I read in this reading month was Becoming the Dark Prince by Carrie Maniscalco, and that is a novella from the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. And I gave this novella 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. And this novella basically focuses mostly on Thomas Cresswell. It comes from his perspective, and it's set during the time between escaping from Houdini and capturing the devils. So I really enjoyed kind of getting that bridge between those two books, and I really enjoyed getting to read from Thomas's perspective. As you guys know, I love that series so much. I definitely want to reread it at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this year or if it's going to be next year, but I just love that series and I really want to reread it. And I'm so glad I finally got to the novella because I'd been putting it off and just being like, oh, I don't really need to read it. Like, I had it and I bought it the day it came out, and I was just like, you know what, I don't really need to read it. I'm sure there's nothing that I'm like super missing, but it was such a fun novella and it was so sweet, and I do feel like I really got something from it and got something from like Thomas Cresswell as a character. So I feel like it was definitely worth it just to read it. And the next book that I read this month was La Bisona by Romina Garber. And this book kind of set off my arc reading trend for this month. And I read this arc, I think, the day before it came out, and I just really loved it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was super interesting and definitely not a book that I was expecting to really enjoy. I ended up getting an email from the publisher asking me if I wanted to read this arc, and I was like, sure, you know, it's a Latinx book. I would love to read it and I'd love to review it. So I was like, you know what, totally, I'll do it. And I didn't really know what it was about. It just kind of like looked interesting, like the cover was really pretty, and I'd heard some people talking about it, and I really wanted to read it. And I was like, I have no idea what it's about, and now I'm nervous because once I finally did read the synopsis, I'm like, oh, there's werewolves. And I'm not a huge fan of werewolves. I'm not a huge fan of most like supernatural creatures like werewolves, vampires. I don't really read those kind of books. But with La Bisona, I really enjoyed it. I was so surprised. I really loved how the Argentinian culture and folklore was woven into this novel, and I just found it so rich in culture and so beautifully done. I really enjoyed it. And for my review, I said, La Bisona is a magical and brilliant exploration of identity, home, culture, and belonging. And that's like the perfect way to sum up this book. And it just worked so well for me. I really loved the characters. I loved all of the character dynamics. I loved the journey that especially the main character went through. And within the world of this book, the men are lobisones and then the women are brujas. And so it kind of works against that dynamic when the main character is a girl and also a lobisona. So it was really interesting to kind of explore that gender dynamic within the book, and I just really loved how it explored culture and gender and folklore and made it all really fun at the same time while also being very serious. I feel like it's really great when a book can do that. I think my only criticism for this book would definitely be the pacing. I felt like a lot of parts were very slow and possibly unnecessary, but overall it was a really good book and I had a lot of fun reading it. The next book I read was my first physical book of the month, and that is Bonecry's Moon by Catherine Purdy. I loved this book so much. It's definitely one of my new favorite fantasy books, especially of this year. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I just really enjoyed this story, and it has stuck with me ever since I read this book. I cannot wait for the sequel. I am like literally chomping at the bit. I want to read the sequel so bad. I really hope I get approved for an arc. Whenever the arcs come out, I'm gonna need it. So basically, this book is about these two girls, and they are both bone criers, or trying to become bone criers. Bone criers are these magical creatures who are kind of like sirens. They lure men and they make them fall in love with them, or just kind of like a soulmate thing. And then within that 1 year, they're either supposed to kill them or they just both die. And I really enjoyed the magic system in this book, or just kind of the fantasy world that was created in this book. I thought it was so well done. It was so interesting and so layered and so detailed. I really, really enjoyed it, and I loved the main characters so much. This book follows 3 main characters, Elise, Sabine, and Bastion, and they're all so intriguing. Really, the only criticism I had for this book was that in the first couple of chapters, I couldn't really tell Sabine and Elise apart, but I think that was just my fault because I wasn't really paying a lot of attention to the book, and I was still trying to come out of my reading slump, so I feel like that kind of affected my reading comprehension for the first couple of chapters, which happens with fantasy books for me. It always takes a couple of chapters for me to get my footing, so I don't know if that was just the book or if that was just me. But towards the middle and the ending, their chapters definitely became so much more distinct, and I really loved them as characters. I thought they were amazing. I loved their friendship. I loved how dedicated they were to each other. And then I also really loved Bastion. I thought his chapters were so intriguing, and I really loved him as a character. I thought he was a really good match for Elise, and just seeing them bounce off each other, and it was definitely hate to love. And you guys know I love hate to love. It's literally my favorite trope, and it worked so well in this book. And I don't know where I said this, but I said that if you wanted to like Serpent and Dove, if you went into it thinking you were gonna like it and then didn't really like it, you might enjoy this book a little bit better, because it kind of reminds me of Serpent and Dove, but it's done better, if that makes sense. I really enjoyed Serpent and Dove, but this was a better book. It just was, and I really enjoyed it, and I completely highly recommend this book. The next physical book that I read for this month was Court of Lions by Samaya Dowd, and I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. And I don't really want to go too much into it because I was really disappointed with this book, and I will definitely leave a link down below to the vlog where I kind of rant about it. And I don't really want to do a whole nother rant here, so I'm just going to say that I was really disappointed by the sequel, and I felt like the conclusion really left me wanting a lot more from this book than I received. I was just overall really disappointed with how it left off, and overall I feel like this book should have just been made into one large standalone rather than 2 separate books. I still really loved Meram. I think Meram is definitely my favorite character out of the duology, and if you're going to read the series, read it for Meram. She is the greatest character. I love her so much, but she was just a really interesting character, and I really thought that she was the best part of this book. The next physical book that I read was Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed, and I'm so glad that I finally got to read this book. It was amazing. I definitely set out to read this book in the month of August, and I'm so glad that I got to it. I really don't know how to explain how much I love this book. It definitely showcases the kind of performative, toxic allyship that we definitely need to stay away from, and I think that so many people could benefit from reading this book and really taking it to heart. And I really hope that a lot of people do read this book, because I feel like, especially, within our community, there is a lot of performative allyship, and I think that a lot of us could learn from this book, just saying. But overall, I really love the writing of this book. Like I've said before, it feels so accessible, it's so easy to read, and you will literally blow right through it. I read it in one day. It was amazing. I could not put it down to save my life. Literally, I would start to be putting it down, and then something crazy would happen, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I cannot put this down. It's so good. And I really love that the main character was 25 years old, because I could highly relate to her. So it was really fun, a really great read, and definitely informative and really necessary. And the very last 2 books that I read this month were both ARCs, and they were both part of a vlog that I did that I will link down below. And the first one that I read was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, and I gave that 5 out of 5 stars, and it's easily, definitely my favorite book of the year. It destroyed me. It destroyed every single part of me. I still think about it constantly to this day. I mean, it hasn't been that long since I read it, but I cannot listen to Cardigan by Taylor Swift without like wanting to burst into tears. It definitely left its mark on me and I love it so much. I 100% recommend this book. If you can get your hands on it even before it gets published, do it. Read it immediately right now. If you've been putting it off, read it right now, and listen to Cardigan constantly. Listen to the entire album of Folklore because it works so perfectly. Oh my god, I just love this book so much. I would give it my entire heart. I cannot wait till it comes out because I'm going to be annotating the heck out of that book, and I basically did on my iPad. I was literally highlighting passages, like chunks and chunks of passages from this book. It was amazing. I loved it. And then the last book that I read this month was She's Too Pretty to Burn by Wendy Hurd, and that was an ARC that I received and I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I talk about why I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars in that vlog, but basically there were some uncomfortable moments that occurred within this book, and I'm just going to read a really quick passage from my review of kind of like some of the things that made me a little bit uncomfortable. I want to iterate that I'm not saying that this book should be canceled. I'm not saying that it's super problematic. I'm just saying that there are some points in this book that are a little uncomfortable and that are a little weird, and I kind of want to let you guys know about them. I said, a lot of the beginning of this book has instances of dubious consent where Veronica is pushing boundaries with Mick and not listening to her when she says no, whether it's about kissing or taking her picture, because the character of Mick, she is really anxious about having her picture taken. Sometimes it causes panic attacks and she gets really anxious about it. And then there's the scene at the gala where sexual pictures of Mick, who is 17 years old, are sold at auction. These are just some of the instances that are uncomfortable and weird in my opinion. So I just found, you know, those two things to be just not necessarily something I want to read, and I just felt like the relationship between Veronica and Mick was really strange, and I didn't understand why they liked each other. It just didn't seem like there was a lot of chemistry between them, and I couldn't really buy the relationship, especially towards the end. So I gave it a 2 out of 5 stars. I really wanted to like it because it is sapphic, and I was expecting it to be kind of more like Heather's, kind of more like a satire. I know I said all of this in my vlog, so it's kind of repetitive, but that's what I was expecting going into it. That's what I kind of thought from a lot of the promotion that it had, and it didn't really give me satire. It didn't give me Heather's, and I was really disappointed. So unfortunately it was a 2 out of 5 stars for me, and I can't really recommend it. So that kind of left off this month on a sour note, and I was really disappointed. But overall, I think I had a really great reading month, and I really found some good books to read, especially The Secret Life of Addie LaRue, and especially Bone Cars Moon as well, and Lobizona, and also Such a Fun Age as well. So I definitely read more books that I loved compared to books that I didn't love, which is always a win. So really quickly, I wanted to talk about some of the books that I wanted to read before the Latinx Book Bingo Readathon, which I will do a separate video for very soon because I wanted to show you guys my TBR. But the first book that I really want to get to this month is Blood and Honey by Shelby Mahurin, and this is a sequel to Serpent and Dove, and I'm so excited about it. I love this cover so much. I am just ready to see what this is about because I feel like so many people have talked about it, and so much of what I heard has been negative, so I'm very intrigued. I really wanted the ARC for this book so I wouldn't have to buy it, but like I said on Twitter, I think the publishers knew that I was a sucker and I would buy it anyway. So here it is. I'm going to read it. And then recently I was able to purchase a copy of one of my favorite books from this year, and that is The Lady Rogue by Jen Bennett. I read this book earlier this year and I really enjoyed it. I absolutely love this book. 5 out of 5 stars. Super excited to reread it. I really want to reread this book, and I feel like I've been consuming so much depressing media lately, so I'm just like, give me some serotonin. I need the serotonin, so I'm hoping that rereading a favorite will make me feel a little bit better. And then the last book I want to try to squeeze in before the Latinx Book Bingo Readathon is Stain by A.G. Howard. I actually have started this book. I'm about 30 pages in, and the writing is flawless. It's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's lyrical, It's just so amazing and I'm like blown away, literally speechless. And this is also Princess and the Pea retelling, which I love that fairy tale so much, and it never gets love, and now it's getting love. I am just ready for this book. I really hope I like it. So yeah, that was my wrap up and my TBR. I will definitely do a Latinx Book Bingo readathon TBR very soon, and I'm just so excited for that as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and my voice is going away because I have not spoken this much in the past week. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also go ahead and follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!